Sometimes, bigger isn't better. It's just too much to handle.
Let's go.
These 10 colossal machines were so powerful, dangerous, or just plain insane that governments across the globe said, "Nope, you can't use that here." From earth-shaking mining monsters to oversized vehicles that could crush anything in their path, these banned beasts prove that sometimes size comes with consequences.
Click the subscribe button. This is the channel where you will find rare and incredible facts about cars.
Number 10. All right, my friends. Put down your cup of coffee and pay attention, because today's lecture is about a machine so stupidly huge that it makes even dump trucks and land yachts look like Hot Wheels. I'm talking about NASA's very own crawler transporter, the ride so big it carries rockets instead of groceries. Yeah, you heard me. While the rest of us were driving Pintos and Impalas, NASA rolled out a vehicle that could piggyback a Saturn V rocket like it was giving a kid a lift to school. This thing was born in the 1960s for the Apollo missions, and let me tell you, the engineers didn't skimp. We're talking 6.6 million pounds of pure steel and diesel madness. That's 3,000 tons, folks. It's basically a moving skyscraper base with tank tracks strapped on. When you park this bad boy in your driveway, congratulations, you no longer have a driveway, you have an airstrip. Now here's the kicker. The crawler ain't cruising down Route 66 or pulling into the Taco Bell drive-thru. Nope. It was banned from normal roads because it literally cracked the pavement wherever it went. Imagine you're a county road manager and NASA calls like, "Hey, can we take the crawler down Main Street?" And you're like, "Buddy, the second you turn left at Dairy Queen, half the town's asphalt is gonna look like the Grand Canyon." And speed? Hold on to your baseball caps, because this beast maxes out at a whopping 1 mile per hour. Yep, 1. You could crawl on your hands and knees and beat this thing to the finish line. Joggers? Gone. Golf carts? Smoked it. Heck, even grandma with a walker would leave it in the dust. But here's the deal. When you've got $1 billion rocket strapped to your back, you don't exactly need to be drag racing. You need steady, slow, and don't drop the nuke-looking thing. Let's talk fuel. The crawler is powered by two 2,750 horsepower diesel engines, and it guzzles gas like a frat boy at a keg party. We're talking 150 gallons per mile. Yes, per mile. Forget miles per gallon, this thing is gallons per foot. If you thought your 70s Cadillac was a gas hog, congratulations, it just became a Prius in comparison. And the tracks? Oh baby. Each of its 8 tracks has 57 shoes, and each shoe weighs a ton. That's right, 1 ton per shoe. When the crawler goes shoe shopping, it ain't hitting Payless, it's ordering steel slabs by the semi-truckload. But let's not forget the coolest part. This monster made history. It carried every Saturn V rocket to the pad for Apollo missions. Then it hauled the space shuttles, and now it's prepping for Artemis and the new moon missions. This isn't just a machine. It's basically the chauffeur for humanity's greatest road trips, straight into space. The crawler transporter is the ultimate American flex. It's big, it's slow, it's banned from your local cul-de-sac, and it eats diesel like candy. But it also helped us reach the moon, and that makes it a legend. It's not a car, it's not a truck, it's a rolling national monument.
Number 9. The Dornier Doe X, a beast with 12 engines strapped on like it was auditioning for the role of Airborne Frankenstein. Now picture this. You're in Germany in the late 20s, and aviation is the hot new thing. Planes are getting bigger, faster, sleeker. Meanwhile, Claude Dornier says, forget all that. I'm building the biggest flying boat the world has ever seen. And not with 2 engines, not with 4. Oh no, we're going with 12, baby. That's right, the Doe X had so many propellers it looked less like an airplane and more like a floating ceiling fan convention. Here's the kicker though. With all those engines, you'd expect it to fly like a jet-powered eagle, right? Wrong. The Doe X struggled to get off the water. I mean, this thing would roar down the lake, spray flying everywhere, engines screaming like a pack of angry chainsaws, and then it would kinda just wobble into the air like a drunk flamingo. If you were on board, you weren't so much taking off as you were begging physics to show mercy. And oh, the inside. This wasn't some Spartan military crate. Nope. Dornier decked it out like a cruise ship with wings. It had lounges, dining rooms, even a smoking parlor. Picture the Titanic, but in the sky, minus the iceberg, and with a new problem, gravity. It could haul over 100 passengers, which in 1929 was absolutely bananas. But with a full load of people, forget about flying. This baby could barely hop a fence. Now let's talk safety, or rather the lack of it. Having 12 engines meant something was always breaking down. One engine smoking, another's coughing, the mechanics running around with a wrench while passengers are sipping cocktails, pretending they're not about to die. If you think modern budget airlines cut corners, you ain't seen nothing until you've seen the Doe X trying to clear the treetops. Uncle Sam and the rest of the world took one look and said, yeah, nice try, Germany, but this thing's not gonna make it into commercial service. People like landing more than crashing. So it was basically banned from commercial routes. Sure, it made some publicity flights, even crossed the Atlantic, but it was more stunt than practicality. The Wright brothers gave us wings. Dornier gave us, well, a really expensive seaplane-shaped lawn ornament. And here's the irony. This flying boat was supposed to be the future of luxury travel, but by the 1930s, actual airplanes with fewer engines and better performance left it in the dust. The Doe X went from the future of aviation to giant paperweight real quick. But hey, give credit where it's due. The Doe X was a flex. It was Germany saying, look how big we can build it. Even if it couldn't fly worth a damn, it sure as heck turned heads. And today, we look back and laugh, because it's proof that just because you throw more horsepower at something doesn't mean it actually works. It's like bolting 12 lawnmower engines to a canoe and calling it a speedboat. So, to wrap it up, the Dornier Doe X was the granddaddy of overkill. It was bold, it was ridiculous, and it was grounded almost as often as it flew. But it earns a spot in aviation history just for trying. And if it could talk, the Doe X would probably shrug and say, hey, I may have flown like a busted shopping cart, but I was the biggest damn thing in the sky, and that's gotta count for something.
Number 8. Ladies and gentlemen, gearheads and history buffs, let me hit you with one of the craziest only in America inventions, the Luterno Overland Train. Yeah, you heard that right. Not a regular train, not a semi-truck, but a 500-foot-long mechanical centipede rolling across the dirt like Uncle Sam said, highways, who needs them? Let's just build our own. So here's the setup. Back in the Cold War days, the US military had a little problem. They needed to haul supplies across places with no roads. Alaska, the Arctic, random deserts. Basically where God said, nope, don't drive here. Instead of shrugging, Luterno Industries cooked up the Overland Train. And boy, did they overcook it. Picture this beast, a 500-foot-long convoy made of giant articulated trailers, all linked together like some kind of Mad Max caterpillar. But instead of a locomotive up front, it had giant rubber tires taller than Shaq and nuclear-level diesel-electric engines powering multiple cars. No tracks, no rails, just pure, raw American, let's see if this works energy. Now here's the funny part. It did kinda work. The overland train could crawl over tundra, mud, snow, whatever you threw at it. It was like the Energizer Bunny on steroids. It just kept going. But try putting this sucker on a highway? Forget it. It was like trying to parallel park a football field. Drivers behind it must have thought they were stuck behind a mobile apartment complex. You'd be waiting 3 hours just to make a left turn. And the steering? Oh man. Imagine playing a video game where the lag is 5 minutes long. You'd turn the front, and half a mile later, the back trailers would swing around like a drunk alligator. Safe for highways? Not a chance. Uncle Sam looked at it and said, "Cool toy, but there's no way Joe Q. Public is driving this thing to the grocery store." Of course, being America, you know we thought about it. What if civilians got one? Just imagine some rancher in Texas pulling up to Walmart with a 500-foot-long shopping cart on wheels. That'd be one way to block every parking space from Dallas to Houston. But here's where it really gets wild. The overland train wasn't even the craziest version Luterno pitched. They wanted to build a nuclear-powered one, a rolling atomic land train. That's right, 100 trailers powered by a nuclear reactor just cruising across the landscape like some Fallout DLC. Talk about a road hazard. You rear-end that thing and poof, instant mushroom cloud. Thankfully, even the military was like, yeah, let's pump the brakes on that. Now, in all seriousness, the overland train never really made it past testing. Why? Well, helicopters got better, and guess what? It's a lot easier to fly a crate of supplies than drag half a city block across the tundra. The overland train was retired before it ever got the chance to shine, which is kind of a shame. It was less a vehicle and more a rolling monument to American ambition and overkill. So what do we learn from this? Simple. Sometimes bigger isn't better. Sometimes bigger is just longer, slower, and impossible to U-turn. The Luterno overland train will forever go down as the world's longest nope on wheels. Number 7. The Hughes H-4 Hercules, better known as the Spruce Goose. Yup, the largest flying boat ever built. It flew once, and I mean once. Then it retired like it had a government pension. It's the 1940s. World War II is in full swing, and shipping stuff across the Atlantic is getting dicey. German U-boats are lurking under the waves like sharks at a beach party. Uncle Sam says, hey, we need a way to haul tanks, troops, and cargo without getting blown up out at sea. Enter Howard Hughes, the billionaire, playboy, engineer, and part-time mad scientist. He says, don't worry, fellas, I'll build a plane so big it'll make everything else look like a paper airplane. The H-4 Hercules was the king-size mattress of airplanes, 320 feet of wingspan, taller than a 5-story building, and made almost entirely out of wood. Yup, wood. Not because Hughes was a fan of carpentry, but because wartime aluminum was in short supply. So the man built the world's biggest plane out of birch. But Spruce Goose stuck because it's funnier. This thing was supposed to carry 750 fully loaded troops, or 2 Sherman tanks. Basically, it was the Airbnb of the skies. Except there was one tiny problem. It was so dang heavy, people weren't sure it could actually fly. Critics roasted it, Congress poked fun at it, and Hughes got mad. He basically said, "Listen here, America, I'm not wasting taxpayer money. I'll prove this big bird can fly." On November 2nd, 1947, Hughes himself took the controls, fired up those 8 monster radial engines, and managed to lift the Spruce Goose a whopping 70 feet off the water. It flew for about 1 mile. That's it. 1 mile, 1 flight, never again. Talk about a mic drop moment. The Spruce Goose wasn't so much a plane as it was a floating flex. Hughes built it to prove he could, like a guy buying the biggest pickup truck in town just to haul groceries. Sure, it flew, but just once. After that, Hughes kept it in a climate-controlled hangar, polishing it like it was the Mona Lisa of aviation. He refused to admit it was a failure. It flew, didn't it? He'd snap. Well, technically, yeah, but so does a paper airplane. Imagine being one of the 750 soldiers it was supposed to carry. You're looking at this giant wooden bathtub with wings and thinking, "So you want me to cross the Atlantic in this?" Yeah, no thanks, Chief. I'll take my chances on the boat with torpedoes. Appreciate it. And can we talk about the nickname? Spruce Goose makes it sound like a cartoon character, not a world record airplane. Honestly, it should have been called the Flying Lumberyard, or maybe Termite Airlines. At least that'd be accurate. Despite being a one and done, the Spruce Goose is legendary. Why? Because it's peak American ambition. It says, "We'll build it bigger than anyone else, whether or not it actually works." That's the same spirit that gave us monster trucks, deep-fried Oreos, and the Super Bowl halftime show. So yeah, the Spruce Goose may have been permanently grounded, but in the history books, it still soars. Not for what it did, but for what it tried to do. Make the skies bow down to sheer audacity. If you ask me, the Spruce Goose was less of a failure and more of a reminder that sometimes you just gotta go big, even if it means you only get off the water for 30 seconds. Because in America, we don't just build airplanes, we build legends.
Number 6. Enter the Tsar tank, also called the Netopur, which is Russian for bat, though honestly it should have been called the world's most ridiculous tricycle. Somebody in the Imperial Russian military looked at a bicycle and said, "What if we just make it 50 feet tall and use it for war?" And instead of anyone laughing that guy out of the room, the army said, "Da, comrade, let's roll with it." Literally. Now, the Tsar tank didn't look like a tank at all. Forget the chunky armored beasts we think of today. This thing was basically a Victorian Ferris wheel with cannons. 2 front wheels taller than a house, 1 little wheel in the back like a kid's training wheel, and a body slung between them like a giant hammock. It looked less like a weapon of war and more like something P.T. Barnum would use in a parade. The idea was simple. In theory, those massive wheels would just roll right over trenches, barbed wire, and puny enemy soldiers. Nothing could stop it. Except, well, physics. See, here's the problem. Big wheels up front, tiny wheel in the back. And if you've ever tried riding a tricycle over mud, you already know where this is going. That poor back wheel dug into the earth like it was trying to tunnel to China, and the whole contraption got stuck faster than a minivan in a snowstorm. During its one and only test run, the Tsar tank drove a few yards and immediately bogged down. That was it. Game over. Now, imagine being a Russian soldier watching this giant bicycle of doom sputter and die in the mud. You're probably thinking, "I left my village for this? My babusha could build better with her sewing machine." And the cherry on top? The Tsar tank wasn't just a little unsafe, it was a straight-up death trap.
If it had actually made it into battle, one well-aimed artillery shell would have turned it into a giant rolling bonfire. And because it was so tall, the enemy wouldn't even have to aim hard. It was like shooting at a barn door with wheels. The army brass took one look at the test results, scratched their heads, and said, "Yeah, maybe we don't need a 60-foot-tall bicycle tank after all." They scrapped the whole project and left the prototype rusting in the woods until the 1920s, where it sat like the world's saddest playground ride. But here's the thing. You can't even be mad at the Tsar tank. You gotta respect the sheer audacity. It's classic human behavior. We don't need small, practical, efficient machines. Nah, let's build something so big it looks like it was designed by a kid with a crayon. That's the same energy that gave us monster trucks, skyscrapers, and deep-fried butter at the state fair. So, the Tsar tank? Total flop. Couldn't fight, couldn't roll, couldn't even make it across a muddy field. But it still earns a spot in the Hall of Fame for crazy inventions. Because if history teaches us anything, it's that sometimes you gotta shoot for the stars. Or, in this case, ride a Ferris wheel into battle, even if you faceplant in the mud 5 minutes later. At the end of the day, the Tsar tank wasn't a weapon. It was a punchline on wheels. Number 5. The Bagger 288 excavator out of Germany. Now, when I say big, I don't mean your uncle's lifted pickup truck or some fancy RV rolling down the highway. I mean 13,500 tons of pure, unapologetic, steel-chewing madness. This thing makes Godzilla look like a house cat. Built in the 1970s, the Bagger 288 wasn't designed to be cute, fast, or anything remotely sensible. No, sir. It was designed for one purpose only: to eat the Earth alive. Picture the world's largest chainsaw married a Ferris wheel and then drank too many protein shakes. That's the Bagger 288. This beast is so big, it doesn't even drive. It crawls, slowly, on tank treads that are the size of houses. And when I say slow, I mean snail with arthritis slow. Top speed? About half a mile per hour. Yeah, you could beat this thing in a foot race while juggling cheeseburgers. But here's the kicker. Once it finally arrives, it's game over for the dirt. This machine can move 240,000 tons of earth in a single day. Let me translate. That's like digging out the Grand Canyon with a soup spoon, except way faster. Now, you might be thinking, that's awesome. Why don't we just park one outside every city and let it go to town? Well, here's why. If you let the Bagger 288 anywhere near people, it's basically the Grim Reaper with hydraulics. Whole neighborhoods would disappear faster than a pizza at a Super Bowl party. That's why they banned it from operating near populated areas. You don't park a Bagger 288, you evacuate a zip code. And let's talk about the looks of this monster. Standing over 300 feet tall and nearly 700 feet long, it looks less like construction equipment and more like something out of Star Wars. If Darth Vader needed to do some landscaping, this would be his ride. Seriously, if you saw this thing crawling over the horizon, you wouldn't think mining machine, you'd think, welp, the aliens finally showed up. Funny story, when they first rolled this behemoth out, they had to move it 14 miles to a new coal mine. Sounds easy, right? Wrong. It took them 3 weeks. 3! They had to move power lines, reroute traffic, and even build bridges just to let this guy shuffle along. Imagine telling your boss you'll be there in 3 weeks because your ride only goes slower than grandma on a rascal scooter. Here's the wild part. Despite its insane size, the Bagger 288 isn't some useless gimmick. It actually works. It's been chomping away in German coal fields for decades, turning mountains into molehills like it's no big deal. But it's also the perfect metaphor for humanity's love of overkill. Did we need a machine this massive? Probably not. Did we build it anyway? You bet your bratwurst we did. So, to wrap it up, the Bagger 288 is too big, too slow, too terrifying to bring anywhere near civilization. But it's also one of the greatest flexes of engineering in human history. It's not just a machine, it's a statement. It says loud and clear, yeah, we could have used shovels, but where's the fun in that? At the end of the day, the Bagger 288 isn't just a mining excavator. It's a steel dinosaur with an appetite for planet Earth. And thank goodness it's banned from the suburbs, because I don't know about y'all, but I'd like my backyard to stay where it is. Number 4. The Belaz 75710, the dump truck that redefines too much of a good thing. Now, when I say dump truck, don't you dare picture that little thing your neighbor drives to haul gravel for his driveway. No, no, no. This bad boy is a 400-ton hauler. That's right, 450 tons. To put that in perspective, that's like giving a piggyback ride to 7 fully grown blue whales, or hauling around an entire small-town Walmart in one scoop. And let me tell you, this truck doesn't fit on roads. In fact, public roads flat out ban it. Why? Because the second those wheels touch asphalt, the pavement would cry uncle and split like a cheap folding chair at a family cookout. You don't drive a Belaz 75710 to work. You dedicate a mine to it. It's literally too thick for city streets. Under the hood, forget about one engine. This monster packs 2 16-cylinder diesel engines. That's basically strapping 2 locomotives together and saying, that'll do. Combined, they churn out over 4,600 horsepower. To put that in human terms, that's like every single horse in Kentucky running at once just to get this thing moving. And moving is the key word here, because while it can haul the weight of a skyscraper, it ain't winning any drag races. Top speed? About 40 miles per hour downhill with a tailwind, if it's feeling generous. And the tires? Sweet mercy. Each one of those bad boys is taller than a grown man. We're talking 13 feet tall, weighing over 5,000 pounds apiece. Imagine needing a crane just to change a flat. Imagine rolling up to a tire shop and asking, "Y'all got something in size Titanic?" Now, here's where the humor kicks in. The Belaz 75710 is so gigantic that the driver's cab sits higher than most rooftops. Climb up there and you don't feel like you're in a truck anymore. You feel like you're commanding a battleship. The steering wheel, about the size of a pizza pan. And you better believe you need nerves of steel, because one wrong turn and you're not just clipping a mailbox, you're flattening 3 city blocks. Of course, this monster isn't cruising around downtown. Nope, it's locked up in mines where it can do what it does best, gobble up rocks like Pac-Man on steroids. These trucks basically spend their whole lives hauling enough dirt to bury entire football stadiums over and over again. But here's the kicker. This thing is actually fuel efficient for its size. Sounds crazy, right? Each gallon gets about half a mile. Half! But hey, when you're moving 450 tons at once, that's like getting 100 miles per gallon in a Honda Civic. It's all about perspective, baby. So, what do we take away from the Belaz 7571? Simple. It's living proof that humans have 2 settings when it comes to building stuff. Just enough and way too much. And the Belaz is absolutely parked in the second category. It's not a truck. It's not even a machine. It's a rolling mountain with headlights. And thank heavens it's banned from public roads, because I don't know about you, but I'd rather not get stuck behind this thing on my morning commute. Imagine trying to pass it in your Honda Accord. You'd need Google Maps, a packed lunch, and maybe a few vacation days. Number 3. The Antonov An-225 Mriya, a flying monster so massive it makes your idea of jumbo look like a paper airplane. And yes, we're talking the heaviest aircraft on the planet. The Mriya wasn't designed for your weekend getaway. This bad boy was built to haul nuclear rockets, satellites, and stuff so huge it makes a Walmart shopping cart look like a thimble. Think of it as the UPS truck of the skies, but instead of delivering packages, it delivers entire space programs. Weighing in at over 600 tons empty, and with a maximum takeoff weight of 640 tons, the Mriya is basically an airborne skyscraper. And get this, it has 6 engines. That's right, 6. Most commercial airliners get by with 2, maybe 4. The Mriya? Nah, it's like, hold my propeller, I've got this. You ever seen 6 jet engines start up at once? Your ears will file a formal complaint. And the wingspan? Holy smokes! It stretches 290 feet, almost the length of a football field. If you tried to park it at your local airport, you'd block 3 runways, a taxiway, and probably someone's hangar. That's why many airports straight up banned it. They weren't being picky. The Mriya literally doesn't fit anywhere else. Imagine telling the TSA, "Sorry, this is my ride for vacation. Don't worry, it's just a tad wider than your gate." But it's not just the size that's ridiculous, it's the load it can carry. The Mriya can haul 250 tons of cargo inside, or stick it on top like a flying flatbed truck. That's enough to carry a full football team, their gear, and the stadium concessions, all in one flight. Need to airlift a wind turbine? No problem. A massive generator? Easy. A tank? Yup, check. Your mother-in-law's entire furniture collection? Well, maybe call UPS first. And let's talk takeoff. Getting this beast off the ground is like trying to throw a battleship into orbit with a giant slingshot. You need a runway longer than most small cities just to get airborne. Crosswinds? Forget about it. Tailwind? You're flirting with disaster. Pilots don't just fly the Mriya, they negotiate with physics and pray to every air traffic god they can think of. Now, the cockpit is, let's say, cozy by comparison. 6 engines and a cargo bay the size of a football field, but inside, you've got a standard-looking flight deck where 6 pilots and co-pilots coordinate this floating whale. And the humor? If someone sneezes up front, the passengers in the back would feel a slight breeze, maybe. So what do we take away from the Antonov An-225 Mriya? It's a flying mountain, a sky-bound titan, a machine so absurdly huge it doesn't just break records, it laughs in their face. It's proof that when engineers get bored, they don't just build airplanes, they build planes that put Godzilla to shame. Bottom line, this isn't your dad's Cessna. It isn't even a 747. The Mriya is the ultimate go big or go home aircraft, banned from airports that weren't ready for it, and adored by anyone who loves seeing the impossible take flight. Number 2. The one, the only, big musky dragline. And no, this ain't some fish you catch down at the creek. This is the largest dragline excavator ever built in the good old US of A. A walking, clanking, earth-devouring monster that made shovels look like toothpicks. First off, let's get a sense of scale. Big Muskie wasn't just big, it was absurdly ginormous. We're talking a machine over 22 stories tall if you include the boom, and it weighed in at a casual 13,500 tons. Yeah, that's tons with a capital T, folks. For comparison, your average city block is basically a mouse pad to this thing. You wanted to dig? Big Muskie said, "Hold my diesel engine." It was built for one purpose and one purpose only: eat coal like it owed money. It could scoop up over 220 tons of earth in a single bite. Imagine your grandma trying to dig her garden with a teaspoon. Now imagine a machine that does that, but replaces the teaspoon with a steel bucket the size of a bus. That's Big Muskie. Now, operating this Titan? Not for the faint of heart. The control cab was perched high on the structure, giving operators a view of a tiny human world below. One wrong move, and you weren't just hitting a pothole. You were basically declaring war on the terrain. And man, the noise. Diesel engines roaring, cables creaking. If Big Muskie had a theme song, it'd be Enter Sandman on steroids. But here's where things get spicy. Big Muskie's appetite for destruction didn't sit well with everyone. Nearby towns, environmentalists, and people who just didn't want their hometown flattened threw a fit. Protests popped up faster than hotcakes at a Sunday brunch. And honestly, who could blame them? This thing could turn a serene countryside into a mudslide apocalypse in an afternoon. Eventually, despite being a marvel of engineering, the pressure got too hot. Maintaining a machine this massive wasn't cheap, and neither was dealing with the public relations nightmare of a walking, digging monster in your backyard. So Big Muskie got the ultimate retirement. It was dismantled piece by piece. Fans cried, engineers mourned, and every dig site in America collectively sighed, knowing they'd never see another machine this insane. But let's be real, Big Muskie isn't just history, it's a legend, a testament to what happens when American engineers say, hey, why settle for big when you can go nuclear size? It's proof that in the US, if you've got the ambition, the budget, and absolutely zero concern for subtlety, you too can build a machine that makes Godzilla look like a puppy. So next time someone brags about their new pickup truck, just nod politely and whisper, "Yeah, but can it scoop 220 tons of earth in one bite?" Number 1. The infamous Landkreuz P-1000 Ratte. And no, that's not the nickname of some mutant rodent in a sci-fi flick. This was Nazi Germany's dream of building a tank so ridiculously enormous it would make your SUV look like a toy Hot Wheels car. The Ratte wasn't just big, it was colossally, mind-bogglingly, holy moly massive. We're talking a tank weighing in at 1,000 tons. Yeah, you heard me right, 1,000 freaking tons. For comparison, a modern M1 Abrams tank weighs about 68 tons. The Ratte was like strapping 15 M1s together, strapping cannons on top, and calling it a day. It was designed to be armed to the teeth. Multiple 280mm naval guns, anti-aircraft cannons, machine guns. Basically, if a battleship and a tank had a baby, this would be it. The engineers basically said, roads? Who needs them? Bridges? Let's just plow through villages and forests like it's a Sunday drive. And honestly, that's exactly what the Ratte would have done if it ever rolled off the drawing board. But here's where things get spicy. This beast wasn't just big, it was completely impractical. Fuel consumption would have been astronomical. Maintenance, forget it. You'd need a fleet of trucks just to keep this thing moving. And let's not even talk about maneuverability. Turning a 1,000-ton tank is like trying to steer a battleship down Main Street during rush hour. Oh, and good luck crossing a bridge. Most couldn't even handle half its weight. Because of all these minor details, the Ratte never left the paper stage. Hitler's engineers dreamed big, but reality said, "Whoa there, bub, not today." The project got canned, which probably saved the planet a lot of headaches. Can you imagine the insurance claims if this thing had actually rolled into Paris? Now, here's the fun part. The Ratte has entered legend as the king of what-if weapons. It's a cautionary tale of ambition gone wild, showing that sometimes just because you can build a 1,000-ton tank doesn't mean you should. It's like your buddy saying he's gonna race his lifted monster truck through downtown Manhattan. Hilarious in theory, catastrophic in practice. So next time someone brags about their oversized pickup or flexes their Jeep, just whisper, "Cool, bro, but can it weigh 1,000 tons and crush everything in sight?" That's the Ratte for ya, the ultimate dream big, fail bigger tank that never actually got to terrorize the roads.